for no lack. Lactose-free milk that lets you enjoy dairy again. Made with love by Clover.
Welcome back to the Afternoon Express, this week of love, Valentine's week on Afternoon Express. Now, some of you may know that uncomfortable feeling that you get from being lactose intolerant, such as cramps, bloating, and you might experience such symptoms, but you may not even be aware that you are lactose intolerant. So to shed light on the matter, we speak with dietitian Kim Huffman on lactose intolerance and what are the causes and symptoms around this. Welcome to the Loft.
Thank you.
So let's start off at the very beginning. What exactly does it mean to be lactose intolerant?
Okay, so let's. I'm going to explain it and then I'm going to break it down for you.
Yeah.
So lactose intolerance is when lactose is not digested.
Okay.
It goes into the colon and gets fermented. Those people that have symptoms because of that are lactose intolerant.
Okay, so the symptoms of the bacteria in the gut.
Yes.
All right.
So, and interestingly, only about a third of people who don't have enough lactase to digest the lactose actually have symptoms. Okay. So we have the lactose, it's found in dairy, it is the sugar in the dairy, and it needs to be broken down in our body to be digested.
All right.
And lactase does that. And lactase is generally found on the villi of our small intestine. Okay. And some people just don't have enough, and so when that lactose isn't digested, it cannot be, if it isn't split, it cannot get absorbed, and it then goes into the colon. And there the bacteria get happy, and they start fermenting.
And then does it just sit there?
Well, it eventually
that's why you bloat, because it's all
so
old
the bloating
lactose.
is actually because the bacteria are fermenting it, it releases gases. So that's where the bloating comes from.
Oh.
Water is drawn into the gut, which is where the diarrhea comes from.
Okay.
So all of those, yes, it is because of it, but interestingly, not everyone suffers. So only a third of people who actually don't digest that lactose suffer with symptoms, and only if you suffer with symptoms are you classified as lactose intolerant.
And I mean, how bad is it to go through that? Like, if you are lactose intolerant, but you just kind of deal with it, is it harmful for you to keep that lactose then in your gut and in your colon?
So there's no long-term health effects. Short-term, is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
How severe depends on the individual. So generally with lactose intolerance, there is a certain amount of lactase. Some people have more than others.
Yeah.
So you get people with very mild cases where they can tolerate a certain amount, but if they do too much dairy in a day, then they start feeling the symptoms. Some people can have a sip of something and it's bad. So the symptoms are quite nasty, if you want to put it that way. But there's no long-term effects, and if you are going to do it, it's your choice if you are going to do it. And
gut health fascinates me so much because your gut is basically your second brain.
Yes,
so that needs to be functioning properly so that can function properly.
Correct.
So,
and the rest of the body can function
exactly.
properly.
So, how do you become allergic or lactose intolerant?
Okay.
And are you born with it? And is there a way of reversing it?
Okay.
Can you become lactose tolerant?
Yes. Okay, so two situations. Okay, so there's two main types, the primary and the secondary.
Yeah.
Primary is actually a genetically programmed loss of lactase.
Okay.
So you're not born with it, but you're born with a genetic defect and or mutation, if you want.
Yeah.
And then because of that, from about the age of 2, you start losing lactase. You don't really notice it at that age, but only sort of later adolescence, early adulthood, do you start having the symptoms of lactose intolerance, which means the lactase by that stage is so low that it cannot digest all the lactose that you're having. So that's the primary. And then so you can't reverse it.
Yeah.
When your body runs out, it runs out.
Imagine not being able to eat cheese. I would cry. I would literally cry.
There are ways around it. But you can't get, your villi won't start producing the lactase again once they've lost it.
Okay.
Then you get the secondary, and that is actually when there's an injury to your gut. So something like gastritis, or if you have celiac disease or any inflammatory bowel.
What is gastritis? When you actually injure your digestive
so gastritis
system?
is if you get an infection of the gut, and that's when you then have vomiting, diarrhea, and
then once you damage it, it's done.
No, so that's the good part of secondary lactose intolerance is once the infection is gone, or once you've sorted out the inflammatory bowel, then your villi do recuperate. Okay, so they will regrow, and then the problem is the lactase on the villi. The lactase is right at the tip, so it's one of the first enzymes to go. So once the villi have recuperated, the lactase will be back there. You'll be 2-3 days. You'll be able to tolerate lactose again. But it is a good idea if you have any of those to stop eating lactose for a while or go for the lactose-free options for a couple of days, just to let your gut heal. Because if you continue eating it, then the continued diarrhea and everything will just exacerbate the effect.
Okay, but once you are feeling like that, lactose-free milk, ice cream, all of that you can have.
It will be tolerable.
Okay,
correct.
perfect.
Yes.
Thank you so much for educating
pleasure.
us on lactose intolerance today. Lovely to see you again. So if you do suffer from being lactose intolerant, Clover No-Lac lactose-free milk is pre-treated with an enzyme that actually breaks down any lactose, making it easier to digest. Also, with added calcium and vitamin D, it offers a delicious creamy taste that can be enjoyed with anything. Now, speaking of which, we will be sharing a delicious recipe for you to try at home, so stay tuned for that.
Clover No-Lac, lactose-free milk that lets you enjoy dairy again. Made with love by Clover.